The Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies had been drifting toward each other for millions of years, a slow, cosmic waltz destined to end in collision. Scientists had predicted it for centuries, but the reality struck far sooner than anyone had anticipated. By the time humanity had spread across the stars, building colonies on hundreds of worlds, the gravitational pull between the two galaxies had accelerated. The skies of every inhabited planet glowed with the eerie beauty of Andromeda's spiral arms looming ever closer. Amid this celestial chaos, aboard the intergalactic exploration vessel Stellar Wind, Captain Aaron Locke stared at the vast expanse of space displayed on the bridge viewport. He was a man forged by the crucible of endless battles and harsh planetary campaigns, his expression always stoic, his demeanor unshakable. Yet even he couldn't ignore the beauty of what lay before him. A sea of stars, glowing nebulae, and the faint shimmer of Andromeda's approaching edge. Beside him stood Dr. Lyra Vin, the ship's lead astrophysicist, and the heart he swore he'd never lose. Lyra was everything Aaron wasn't: vibrant, hopeful, and endlessly curious. Where he saw threats in the unknown, she saw possibilities. She was younger than Aaron by almost a decade, but her wisdom often surpassed his battle-worn experience. Her dark curls framed a face perpetually illuminated by wonder, and her green eyes sparkled with the reflection of the galaxies beyond. 2 million light-years between us, shrinking every second, Lyra said softly, her voice a mix of awe and apprehension. It's strange to think we're watching a collision in slow motion. Stars swallowing stars, planets torn apart, yet so much will survive and merge into something entirely new. Aaron folded his arms, his brow furrowed. It's beautiful, Lyra, but beauty doesn't mean safe. I've seen too many things that looked harmless until they weren't. And this is on a scale we can't control. Control isn't always the answer, Aaron. Lyra's gaze didn't waver from the viewport. Sometimes, the only way forward is to adapt. Even galaxies understand that. Her words hung in the air, heavier than the silence that followed. Aaron wasn't a man who liked to dwell on philosophy. He was practical, driven by duty, by the need to protect his crew, and the fragile hope of humanity's survival. But Lyra had a way of unraveling him, of making him think about things he tried to bury deep. The ship's AI, an advanced system named Helios, interrupted their moment. Captain Locke, Dr. Vin, we're detecting anomalous gravitational waves near Sector 438. It appears to be a rogue star system flung from the Andromeda galaxy by the gravitational disturbance of the collision. Lyra's face lit up. A rogue star system? That's incredible. It's a chance to study. Potential danger. Aaron interjected, his instincts kicking in. Helios, plot a course to avoid it. Lyra frowned, her enthusiasm dimming. Avoid it? Aaron, this is exactly why we're out here. To learn, to explore, to survive, he countered, his tone firm. And my job is to make sure we do. But Lyra wasn't one to back down easily. She stepped closer, her voice lowering. Surviving isn't living, Aaron. We're not just fighting to exist. We're fighting for the right to be more than what we are. To grow, to understand, to leave something behind that matters. Her words struck a chord he didn't want to acknowledge, but before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered, and alarms blared. Helios's voice rang out, urgent and calm. Gravitational distortion detected. Rogue system on a collision course with the Stellar Wind. Impact in 42 seconds. Aaron sprang into action, barking orders to his crew. Shields to maximum. Divert all power to thrusters. Get us clear of that system. Lyra gripped the edge of a console, her eyes scanning the data streaming across the screen. Aaron, wait. If we try to outrun it, the gravitational forces could tear us apart. We need to ride the wave. Let it carry us through the distortion. That's insane. Aaron shot back. We'll be crushed. No, we won't, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Trust me, Aaron. I've run the simulations. It's our best shot. Aaron hesitated, his mind racing. He hated not being in control, hated putting his fate, and the fate of his crew, in someone else's hands. But this was Lyra. If he couldn't trust her, who could he trust? Helios, execute Dr. Vin's plan, he ordered. The ship lurched as the AI adjusted their trajectory, angling the stellar wind into the heart of the gravitational wave. The viewport filled with blinding light as the rogue system's forces pulled them into its orbit. For a moment, it felt like the ship would be torn apart, the metal groaning under the strain. And then, silence. The ship steadied, the alarm ceased, and the light faded to reveal a breathtaking sight. They were inside the rogue system, a star burning fiercely at its center, surrounded by shattered planets and glowing debris. It was both beautiful and tragic, a stark reminder of the galaxy's relentless power. Lyra turned to Aaron, a triumphant smile on her face. Told you it would work. Aaron shook his head, a rare smile tugging at his lips. You're impossible, and you're stubborn, she replied, stepping closer. But we make a good team, don't we? Before he could respond, the ship's sensors picked up a signal, a faint, rhythmic pulse emanating from one of the broken planets. Lyra's eyes widened. That's not natural. It's a distress signal. Aaron's expression darkened. A distress signal? Out here. Their eyes met, and for the first time in a long while, they both felt the weight of what lay ahead. The collision of galaxies was only the beginning. Whatever was waiting for them on that shattered world could change everything. And no matter the danger, they would face it together. Aaron's voice carried through the bridge with measured authority. Helios, triangulate the source of the distress signal. Lyra, get ready. If someone's out there sending this, we need answers, and fast. Lyra nodded, her green eyes alight with determination. If it's intelligent life, we might be looking at a survivor of Andromeda, or something we've never encountered before. Helios's voice broke through. The distress signal originates from a fragment of a planet approximately 2,500 kilometers in diameter. Atmospheric scans indicate it is barely habitable, with high levels of radiation and unstable magnetic fields. I advise caution. Aaron's gut twisted, the familiar pang of unease gnawing at him. Caution's my middle name. Prep a landing party, and suit us up for hostile conditions. Lyra, you're staying on the ship. She spun toward him, a spark of defiance already igniting in her eyes. Like hell I am. This could be the most significant discovery in human history, Aaron. You're not leaving me behind. Lyra, it's dangerous. Exactly. And you're going to need me. She stepped closer, her voice softer but no less firm. You know I can handle myself, and if this is anything alien, you'll need my expertise. Trust me, Aaron. He let out a long sigh, pinching the bridge of his nose. Lyra was impossible, but she was also right. She always was. Fine, but you stick close to me at all times. No running off. She grinned. Wouldn't dream of it. Moments later, the stellar wind shuttle descended toward the fractured planet, its hull groaning under the strain of the chaotic atmosphere. Lightning crackled across the sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and valleys filled with swirling, toxic mists. The distress signal pulsed louder as they approached, a rhythmic beat that seemed almost alive. The shuttle touched down on a narrow plateau near the signal's source. The landing party, Aaron, Lyra, and two heavily armed crew members, Sergeant Vance and Engineer Rivera, stepped into the hostile environment, their suits shielding them from the radiation and toxic air. Signals coming from that structure, Rivera said, pointing toward a towering spire of black, alien metal rising from the shattered ground. It shimmered faintly, as if alive, and strange symbols pulsed along its surface in time with the signal. Lyra's voice crackled over the comms. This is unbelievable. The material isn't like anything we've cataloged. It's almost organic. Stay sharp, Aaron said, his hand resting on the hilt of his plasma rifle. If this thing's a distress beacon, someone, or something, activated it. As they approached the spire, the air seemed to hum with energy. Lyra ran a scanner over the surface, her brow furrowing. This isn't just a beacon, it's a doorway. There's a hollow structure beneath us, and this spire is the entry point. Vance grunted, his weapon at the ready. Doorway to what? A trap? Only one way to find out, Lyra replied, already examining the symbols for a way to activate the entrance. Before Aaron could stop her, she pressed her hand against one of the glowing symbols. The ground beneath them trembled, and the spires split open with a low, resonant hum, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. "You've got a habit of pushing buttons before thinking, don't you?" Aaron muttered, shaking his head. Lyra smirked. "It's worked out so far, hasn't it?" The team descended cautiously, their suit lights cutting through the pitch-black interior. The walls were covered in the same pulsing symbols, and the air grew colder the deeper they went. At the bottom of the staircase, they entered a massive chamber that defied logic, vast and impossibly intricate, with floating platforms connected by bridges of light. In the center of the chamber stood a figure. At first, Aaron thought it was a statue, tall, humanoid, and cloaked in an iridescent material that shimmered like starlight. But as they approached, the figure moved, turning toward them with deliberate grace. Its face was featureless, yet its presence radiated an overwhelming sense of intelligence and sorrow. The being raised a hand, and the distress signal ceased. For a moment, there was silence, and then a voice echoed in their minds, clear and resonant. "You are not Andromedan. You are Terran. From the Milky Way." Aaron tightened his grip on his rifle, his instincts screaming at him to be ready. "That's right. What are you?" The being tilted its head, as if pondering the question. "I am a fragment of what once was. A guardian of knowledge from a civilization long gone, destroyed by the collision of galaxies. My people did not adapt. But perhaps yours can." Lyra stepped forward, her voice filled with wonder. "You're from Andromeda. You're a survivor." The being's form flickered, its sorrowful tone deepening. "No, I am an echo, a remnant left behind to warn others. The collision of galaxies is inevitable, but it is not the greatest threat. There is something else, something born from the chaos, a force that devours both light and life." Aaron's jaw tightened. "What kind of force?" The chamber darkened, and a projection filled the space. A swirling void of darkness spreading like a plague, consuming entire star systems. The being's voice grew somber. "We called it the Maw. It is an entity born from the collision, a manifestation of destruction. It will consume your galaxy, as it consumed mine." Lyra's voice trembled. "But there has to be a way to stop it. There's always a way." The being turned to her, its form stabilizing. "Perhaps. Your species has a fire I have not seen before, a defiance against the inevitable. If anyone can face the Maw, it is you." Aaron exchanged a glance with Lyra, his resolve hardening. "Tell us what we need to do." The being extended its hand, and a small, glowing sphere appeared, hovering before them. "Take this. It contains the knowledge of my people. Use it wisely, for it is both your greatest weapon and your greatest burden." Lyra reached out, her hand brushing the sphere. As it dissolved into her suit, a flood of images and information filled her mind. Alien technologies, strategies, and warnings. She staggered, but Aaron caught her, his strong arms steadying her. "We'll do what we have to," Aaron said firmly. "For humanity. For the galaxies." The being began to fade, its form dissolving into starlight. "Then perhaps there is hope. Burn brighter than the stars, Terrans. Burn brighter than the supernova." As the chamber dimmed and the team prepared to leave, Aaron turned to Lyra, their eyes meeting in the glow of the strange, alien light. "No matter what happens, we face this together." Lyra smiled, her voice steady despite the weight of the task ahead. "Always." And as they ascended toward the surface, the rogue planet trembling beneath their feet, they knew one thing for certain. The collision of galaxies would be only the beginning. Together, they would fight for the future, for the stars, and for the love that burned brighter than any supernova. As they emerged from the depths of the alien structure, the storm-laden skies of the shattered rogue planet seemed calmer, almost as if the world itself acknowledged the weight of what had transpired. The stellar wind loomed above, its lights casting long shadows across the jagged plateau. Lyra clutched her head, still reeling from the influx of alien knowledge. "Are you okay?" Aaron asked, his voice softer than usual as they climbed aboard the shuttle. She nodded, though her eyes were distant. "It's overwhelming. Their knowledge. It's like I'm seeing the universe through their eyes. The Maw isn't just destruction. It's alive. A predator that feeds on the energy of stars, planets, and civilizations. It grows stronger with every galaxy it consumes. Rivera, piloting the shuttle, glanced back nervously. How do we fight something like that? Sounds like trying to punch out a black hole. Lyra sat down heavily, her mind racing. It's not invincible. The Andromedans were close to finding a way to stop it. They developed weapons capable of disrupting its energy fields, but the collision of galaxies wiped them out before they could finish. Now, we have their designs. Aaron leaned against the shuttle's bulkhead, his face grim. So, we build these weapons. But if this thing is already spreading into our galaxy, how much time do we have? Lyra closed her eyes, sifting through the fragments of knowledge. Not long. The Maw moves faster than we thought. Months, maybe a year before it reaches the core worlds. The silence that followed was heavy. Humanity had faced extinction before. Plagues, wars, the cold vacuum of space. But this was different. The Maw wasn't just an enemy. It was a force of nature, an entity beyond comprehension. When they returned to the stellar wind, Aaron wasted no time. The crew gathered in the command center, tension palpable as Lyra explained what they'd learned. Holograms of the Maw flickered before them, its tendrils consuming entire star systems. We're going to need every resource we have, Aaron said, pacing the room. Every colony, every ship, every mind working together to build these weapons and prepare for war. Sergeant Vance crossed his arms. And what if humanity doesn't listen? Half the colonies can't agree on trade routes, let alone a galaxy-wide defense plan. They'll listen, Aaron said, his voice steel. Because if they don't, there won't be a galaxy left to argue over. Lyra stood beside him, her presence a calming counterpoint to his intensity. We'll need allies too. Other species, other civilizations. If the Maw threatens Andromeda and the Milky Way, it might already be moving through neighboring galaxies. If we can unite with others, we stand a better chance. Aaron's lips pressed into a thin line. He'd fought in campaigns against alien forces before. Humanity's expansion into the stars hadn't been peaceful. Old grudges ran deep. But Lyra was right. This fight was bigger than any one species. Helios's voice interrupted the discussion. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Central Command. It appears the Council is requesting an immediate briefing on the rogue system and the findings from the distress signal. Aaron exchanged a glance with Lyra. Perfect timing. Patch them through. The holographic display shifted to reveal the stern faces of the Earth Central Council, a collection of politicians, military leaders, and scientists who governed humanity's core worlds. Counselor Marin, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for pragmatism, spoke first. Captain Locke, Dr. Vin, your report suggests a threat of unprecedented scale. Do you have evidence to support these claims? Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. We do. The rogue system structure contained detailed records from an advanced Andromedan civilization. They were annihilated by a cosmic entity they called the Maw, a predator that feeds on galaxies. It's already spreading into the Milky Way. If we don't act now, humanity will be next. The council members murmured among themselves. Admiral Hask, a grizzled veteran, leaned forward. And you believe these weapons the Andromedans designed will work? They were close, Lyra said. With our resources and ingenuity, we can finish what they started. But we'll need full cooperation. Every colony, every fleet, every mind working together. And we'll need to forge alliances with alien civilizations. The Maw doesn't discriminate. It's a threat to all life. Counselor Marin's gaze was calculating. Humanity has spent decades defending itself from alien aggression. Do you truly believe they'll join us? They won't have a choice, Aaron said bluntly. If they don't, they'll die. Just like we will. The room fell silent as his words hung in the air. Finally, Marin nodded. Very well. Earth Central Command will authorize the mobilization of resources. We'll need to convene with colonial leaders and begin reaching out to alien civilizations immediately. Captain Locke, Dr. Vin, you will spearhead this effort. You've seen the threat firsthand. The galaxy needs your leadership. Aaron straightened. We won't let you down. The transmission ended, and the bridge was quiet for a moment. Lyra turned to Aaron, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "We've got a chance, Aaron. A real chance." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice low but firm. "We'll make it work. Together." As the stellar wind set course for the nearest colony to begin their mission, Aaron couldn't shake the weight pressing down on him. The task ahead was monumental, the odds almost impossible. But as he glanced at Lyra, he found strength in her resolve, in the fire that burned in her eyes. Humanity had faced extinction before. They'd risen from the ashes of wars, survived the cold expanse of space, and carved a place for themselves among the stars. This time would be no different, because when galaxies collided, when the void threatened to consume everything, humanity would burn brighter than a supernova. And in that light, there was hope. For the galaxy. For love. For the future. The stellar wind hurtled through space, its engines roaring with purpose. Every second mattered, every moment was a step closer to either salvation or annihilation. Aaron and Lyra stood side by side on the bridge, the glow of the navigation console casting their faces in cold light. Their journey would take them to the sprawling colonies of humanity and the farthest reaches of known space. Places where old alliances had frayed, where humanity's past mistakes still lingered like ghosts. Their first destination was Alpha Centauri, the largest human colony outside Earth. It was a hub of innovation, industry, and political tension. If they could secure its resources and convince its leaders, it would set the tone for the rest of their mission. Aaron stood before the Council of Centauri, his voice unwavering. "We don't have the luxury of debate. The Maw isn't a problem we can run from. It's coming for all of us, and it doesn't care about borders or grudges. You've heard the reports. You've seen the evidence. Humanity has to unite, or we'll fall." Counselor Naresh, an elder statesman with a sharp wit, raised an eyebrow. "And you're suggesting we divert our resources to a war effort based on the testimony of a dead civilization?" Lyra stepped forward, the fire in her voice undeniable. "That dead civilization was more advanced than we could ever dream of. They've given us the tools to fight back, technologies that could tip the scales. But only if we act now. We're not asking you to follow blindly. We're asking you to trust in the survival of our species." Naresh hesitated, his skepticism cracking under the weight of her conviction. After a tense silence, he nodded. "Alpha Centauri stands with you." The victory was hard-won, but there was no time to celebrate. The stellar wind continued its journey, stopping at colonies on the edges of human space. Each negotiation was fraught with challenges, fear, mistrust, the lingering scars of past conflicts, but the urgency of their mission slowly united humanity under a common banner. When they turned their attention to alien civilizations, the stakes grew even higher. Aaron and Lyra found themselves face-to-face with species that had once been humanity's bitter enemies. The reptilian Thrask, the crystalline Olaman, the enigmatic Varid, a coalition of species as varied as the stars themselves. "This is not just a human problem," Aaron told them during a tense summit aboard a neutral station. "The Maw is coming for all of us. If we stand alone, we'll fall. But if we fight together, we have a chance. A slim chance, maybe, but it's better than none." The Thrask ambassador, a towering creature with gleaming scales, hissed. "Your species has not earned our trust, Terran. But if this Maw is as dangerous as you claim, we cannot afford to ignore it. The Thrask will fight." One by one, the alien leaders pledged their support, the gravity of the situation outweighing centuries of animosity. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy stood united, not for conquest or survival of the fittest, but for the preservation of life itself. Months turned into a blur of preparation. Fleets were built, weapons forged, and the Andromedan technologies adapted into powerful systems capable of destabilizing the Maw's energy fields. Lyra worked tirelessly, her mind a repository of alien knowledge that guided humanity's engineers and scientists. Aaron trained the coalition's forces, melding human tactics with alien ingenuity. The fleets became a patchwork of cultures and technologies, a testament to the strength found in unity. Finally, the day came when the Maw breached the Milky Way. Its arrival was heralded by the destruction of an outer star cluster, its tendrils devouring suns and leaving a trail of lifeless worlds in its wake. The Coalition's fleets gathered at the edge of the Perseus Arm, a fragile wall against the oncoming storm. As Aaron stood on the bridge of the stellar wind, the fleet arrayed before him, he took a moment to look at Lyra. She was calm, her expression focused but serene. "This is it," he said quietly. She nodded. "This is where we prove the galaxy was right to believe in us." The Ma's arrival was unlike anything they had prepared for. It was a vast, incomprehensible force, a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to suck the light from the stars themselves. Its presence was suffocating, its size dwarfing even the largest vessels. The battle began with coordinated strikes from the Coalition's fleets, their weapons designed to disrupt the Ma's energy field. Explosions rippled across its surface, slowing its advance but not stopping it. The Ma retaliated with tendrils of energy that ripped through ships like paper, its hunger insatiable. Aaron barked orders, his voice steady even as chaos erupted around him. "Focus fire on the weak points. Don't let up." Lyra worked frantically at her console, integrating the Andromedan sphere's data into the fleet systems. "We need to trigger the destabilization sequence now, or it'll be too late." "Do it," Aaron shouted, trusting her completely. Lyra initiated the sequence, and a wave of energy surged through the fleet's weapons. The next volley struck the Maw with devastating precision, tearing apart its outer layers and exposing its core. A swirling mass of raw, destructive energy. The Maw roared, a soundless scream that echoed in their minds. It lashed out with renewed fury, and the Coalition's fleets began to falter. "We have to finish this," Lyra said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Aaron, I need to get closer to its core to deploy the final payload. The destabilizer can't penetrate from this distance." His heart clenched. "No, I'm not letting you." "There's no time to argue," she snapped. "This is what I was meant to do. Trust me, Aaron." He stared at her, the weight of a million unspoken words between them. Finally, he nodded. "I trust you. Always." Lyra boarded a small craft outfitted with the destabilizer, and Aaron watched as she piloted it toward the Ma's core. His voice cracked as he spoke into the comms. "Lyra, come back to me." She smiled, her face calm despite the chaos. "I will. I promise." The craft plunged into the Ma's core, its energy tearing at the ship. Lyra activated the destabilizer, and for a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, the Ma began to implode, its immense energy collapsing in on itself. The explosion was blinding, a supernova of unimaginable scale that lit up the galaxy. When the light faded, the Ma was gone. The Coalition's fleets cheered, their relief palpable. But Aaron's heart was heavy. "Lyra," he whispered. Then, against all odds, her voice crackled over the comms. "Aaron, I'm here. I'm coming back." Tears filled his eyes as her craft emerged from the debris, battered but intact. She docked with the stellar wind, and when she stepped onto the bridge, he pulled her into his arms, holding her as if he'd never let go. They had done the impossible. Together, they had saved the galaxy. And as the stars burned brighter than ever, so did their love. A love that had defied the void and would endure for eternity.